everybody and welcome back to the wine challenge. So I think it's week 19 now. God, we're getting so close to the end. Don't want it to be over really. This week's wine is one that I've definitely been looking forward to trying. It's the Pierre de Taille Provence Rosé. Now, Provence is one of the oldest winemaking regions in France, and according to a quick Google search, it's been being made there for roughly about 2,600 years. It's also the only region in France that really focuses on rosé, and it actually has its own research institute dedicated purely to rosé wine and their style. Now, rosé is one of those wines which I may have mentioned before. I've always kind of not necessarily ordered for myself on a night out. Quite often I find rosés can be maybe a little bit fruity, sometimes a little bit sweet, sometimes just a little bit too much, a little bit cloying almost. But if that's your perception of rosés, then this is something totally different and something that you will probably really like. It's a lot more refined, it's very fresh, it's very crisp. It's just got a very different style to it than that very kind of sweet rosé that you maybe associate with it. So without further ado, let's pop the cork open. So I've had this chilling in the fridge, as I do with my whites and most rosés. That was a good noise. Excellent, so I'm going to start by pouring myself a measure. Now we'll start with S number 1 from our 5 S's. So S number 1 is C, and it is very, very pale in colour. Definitely a really light pink. I mean, the way that my glass is here at the bottom, it kind of it thins out a little bit where it holds the wine. Don't know if you can see that there, but it's practically, it's like water almost at the bottom. It's completely transparent. It's kind of got a pinky, almost very light kind of salmon tinge to it. Maybe a little bit less orange than salmon though, but it's definitely very, very pale pink. So S number 2, we'll give it a preliminary sniff. So immediately it kind of jumps out the glass a little bit, probably with more kind of almost like, it's like a mild, like citrusy smell to it. I think that's pretty much all I'm getting from first whiff. Let's give it a swirl. So S number 3, swirl. Get a little bit of air in there, see if we can open up the wine a little bit. S number 4, sniff again. To be honest, I'm not really getting that much more. I think it's definitely still kind of citrusy. There may be kind of like a really light, almost red fruit element to it, but a very, very mild hint going on in there. No, I think that's all I'm going to get from smelling it. So we'll head over to S number 5, our favourite S. Sip. Cheers. Just let that coat my tongue. It's got good acidity to it, but it's not harsh acidity to it. It's not an instant kind of, you know, when you pull that face when you bite into a lemon or something like that. It's not like, ooh. It's got a nice level of acidity. Definitely still sensing a little bit of citrus in there. I'd say more along the lines of maybe like a really light lemon, but I can definitely taste the red fruits maybe a little bit more than I could smell them. I definitely think there's a little bit of strawberry in there, but it's not like a sickly sweet strawberry. It's more like a really fresh, like slightly sharp strawberry. So it's, you know, not the kind of strawberries you get when you're on holiday in like the nice warm countries where they go all nice and juicy. It's more like the fresher strawberries, the ones which have a little bit of zing to them. And again, I'm almost sensing it's a little bit like the Riesling we did last week. It's kind of like texture on my tongue, which I associated with minerality there. I don't know whether that's minerality. Again, like I say, I really struggle to pinpoint that, but if that's what they think minerality is, then I think it has that same quality to it. So could be right, could be right. All in all, it's lovely. It's very fresh. There's no kind of weightiness to it. It's very light and crisp and refreshing, and definitely the right kind of wine for the weather that we've been having, certainly. But I mean, that's my first impressions anyway. So let's have a little look-see, let's have a little read and see what I came up with on the computer. So for tasting notes, it says a pale and delicate Provence rosé, definitely pale and delicate, with satisfying weight and depth. So I don't see it as particularly weighty. I mean, depth I maybe understand because there's a few different layers going on in there with, you know, a bit of the lighter citrus and a bit of that texture on the tongue. It's got a decent finish on it. Which again, I kind of associated that with the minerality. Maybe I'm getting confused there. I don't know. So with Provence, Provence is the region of France in which it's produced. So Provence rosé comes from that region, but they haven't It's like a blend of different grape varieties that you will get that are typical for that region and are specific to that wine. So yeah, Grenache, Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon apparently. Perfectly blended for a fresh and fruity bouquet of red fruit. Yeah, I definitely think I got red fruit. I thought along the lines of a nice little strawberry. Complemented by the slight citrus mineral note. Definitely citrus, and I definitely think that I managed to get a little bit of something along the lines of mineral in there as well. So maybe I'm starting to be able to pick that up. Maybe that's something I've managed to learn throughout this experience, throughout the challenge. It says well balanced with a refreshingly long finish. And again, the finish, I do feel like the once you've sort of swallowed the wine, it does kind of stick around in your mouth a little bit longer. I think it's got almost like this texture on my tongue that I can still taste, which is quite pleasant. And well balanced. Yeah, definitely. I think the balance definitely comes into play there with the acidity for me. You don't want it to be too acidic, but it's still got enough to balance out the other flavours that are in there and have the citrus and the fruit and everything like that coming through. So yeah, I think I'm actually quite impressed with how how close to the tasting notes I got with that one. I think that was pretty accurate, and I definitely think pretty fair to say for this wine. So now on to my other favourite part, which has to be pairing with some cheese or some foods and things as well. So this week we've gone for a goat's cheese. So this is the chèvre which we sell in the bar as part of the cheese boards. It's amazing. I've had it many times before and I'm very excited to try it with this wine. So santé, cheers. Well, that wasn't very graceful now, was it? However, the cheese itself, very delicious. And interesting paired with the wine. I think the one thing that I was a little bit concerned about was because the cheese, especially, you know, goat's cheese, is quite a powerful flavour. Obviously, pairing it up with slightly more powerful wines tends to be the thing to be done. This is a lighter style of wine. But I think because it's got decent kind of acidity to it, it kind of cuts through the cheese really quite nicely, especially because this has got, you know, a nice sort of creamy texture to it. It does pair quite well. But I can also imagine, you know, pairing this with hard cheeses like a pecorino, or even something super light, maybe like a mozzarella. So maybe sort of similar cheeses that you'd pair with, say, a Prosecco. It is delicious though, really nice. Definitely, I think that the salt in the cheese, it's not massively salty. I think maybe a slightly saltier cheese would do this even more, but it helps to kind of lessen the acidity side, so maybe helps bring out the red fruit a little bit, so it helps bring out that little bit of strawberry. So I'd be interested maybe to try this with something a lot harder and saltier, like a Parmesan or a Pecorino or something along those lines. If you're looking for other foods to pair with this wine, I've been having a little look, and the general consensus seems obviously seafood. Always really good with a white wine or a rosé, but this in particular, because it kind of has the tendencies of a white wine a little bit more. It's not necessarily as sweet. It is fruity, but it's sort of much lighter fruit. Things like your oilier fishes, especially if they're grilled, so you get that little charred edge on them. Shellfish as well, I can imagine, very, very good with this. I'd love to try this with maybe some scallops, maybe pan-seared scallops or even mussels. Loads of garlic, salty things like olives as well would work particularly well. But a really interesting one that I found was actually Asian curries, apparently. I think maybe the kind of aromatic side to them gets cut through quite nicely with the kind of lightness and the sort of zest that you get coming through in the wine. I don't know. For me personally, I'd definitely stick with maybe scallops with this. I think that'd be delicious, especially like a little starter. Ooh. All in all, very much enjoyed this. I have tried a few Provence rosés before and quite enjoyed them. Generally, it's my style of rosé. I tend to like things that are a little bit sharper and fresher and crisper when it comes to rosé. But let me know what you think. Let me know whether it's a style of rosé that you like, whether you've tried other Provence rosés, maybe with a different blend of grapes going on in them. One which is particularly popular, which you may have noticed is in our shop as well, but is slightly more pricey, is the Whispering Angel, which I have also tried and is absolutely delicious. But hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll see you again next week. So we're completely on the opposite end of the spectrum next week. We're actually going for a very full-bodied red, and we're going to South Africa for a pinotage. So that will be a very interesting one to try. And we've got a new selection of South African wines that have recently come into the shop, so this is one of those. So I'm really excited to give it a go. But until then, enjoy the rest of your bottle, enjoy your week, and cheers.